Welcome. This is All Minus One Quick Shots. Folks, today we are going to be talking about some of the buzz going around in the big bill that is H.R. 127, and some things surrounding it. Now, there have been several mass shootings reported here recently. And we have seen, I talked about this the other week when I addressed H.R. 1, the media manufacturing these mass shootings. Here, this person has denotated, it says Operation Mockingbird. That is the centralized control of the media via the CIA. I'm not saying that this is what is happening, but there are certainly folks who are cheerleaders within the media for the Democrats and the left-wing agenda. So here in Florida, mass shooting in Florida increases 34% in 2020 from 15 year before, while nationally mass shooting jumped nearly 50% during the pandemic, crippling unemployment, blah, 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 blah. Then we go mass shooting surge in Wisconsin. And we have the same narrative. Mass shooting in Wisconsin increases to 10 in 2020 from 3 the year before, while nationally mass shootings jump 50%, crippling unemployment. Why does it read exactly the same? Because this is not genuine. This is why when folks say, hey, trust local papers, I say, no. No. Do not trust your local paper, any local paper. Go to that source because they do tend to be more objective, but understand that often they get things fed down from their corporate overlords. Mass shooting surge in South Carolina. Let's see, so it doesn't keep jumping down like that. So, and then here we have the same text. And these are actual articles, folks. I know these are just screenshots I'm showing you. But here we have the same thing in Pennsylvania. And an increase from 34% in 2020 from 19 the year before. Now, percentages are a good way to hide real numbers, by the way, folks, if you aren't aware of that, because a small fraction of a number, if small enough, will be a huge percentage. For instance, if you have 1, 2 is a 100% jump, right? You just increased one whole fold. So let's keep that in mind. Mass shooting in New York increased. Same language. Ohio. And here we have 25 in 2020 from 14 the year before. And again, it's written exactly as is in every article. And these are all independent papers. You can go check for yourself. So what is the deal with H.R. 127? Well, it says the bill establishes a process for licensing and registration of firearms. It also prohibits the possession of certain ammunition and large capacity magazines. And this is insane. It's completely unconstitutional. It violates your 2nd, 9th, and 10th Amendment. It actually violates your due process clause as well, considering you haven't done anything wrong and your weapon should be grandfathered in. I'm not completely familiar with the severity and how deep the bill goes, but what I do understand it is meant to restrict any weapons of war per se, which is an arbitrary, nonsensical term. You get the leftist talking points. So the Second Amendment meant only muskets. It did not. It meant warships. It meant cannons. It meant everything, folks. It meant dynamite. It meant lots and lots and lots of stuff. So here we have at the bottom, it says the possession of ammunition that is 50 caliber or greater. It's going to penalize that or prohibit it. We already have a ton of restrictions. Now, I don't think this will pass the Senate, but the Democrats will push this through the House just like they did H.R. 1. Why? Well, because it's probing legislation. You have to understand how probing legislation works. The idea is to see where the will of the people is at, how the House and the Senate will vote. I think most of the House and the Senate will vote for their special interest, but some will vote for the people. You'll have people in the Senate who will switch sides, like Mitt Romney. Not really a side switcher. He's just an establishment folk. So he's a rhino. He's really a Democrat, basically. He's really an establishment fellow, which is why he was railed so hard against Trump. And I'm sure he would vote for this if it went to the Senate. But beyond who would vote for it and will the people support it, it's a matter of probing the courts and what will the judiciary put up with. Will the court system say that this is okay and constitutional and make excuses as much of the activist court does? Or will it come back and say, no, you cannot do this. This is unconstitutional. I believe it was the Fourth Circuit that a little while back said no. Banning magazine capacities, certain magazine capacities, was wrong. California and other states, and therefore they struck that down because there is no right for the federal government to do so. Again, it's a violation of your Second, Ninth, and 10th Amendment at the very least. And it's also a issue of interstate commerce because interstate between states is one thing, but the federal government has no regular power or authority to regulate inside a state. Now, they can cut funding to each state, and that's how they tend to get what they want done. They can cut certain funding from schools, from roads, from whatever they want it to be. Public safety, they can cut out grants, they can do all kinds of stuff. And this is how the game is played because the federal government, despite needing to tax you, actually has an endless bank account within the Federal Reserve that just prints money. You know, money goes brrrah, and comes out that printer, and it is however much they want to spend, regardless of the long-term consequences. So, what is all this about? Well, at least according to this Breitbart article, this is some years old, more people are killed by hammers and clubs than rifles of any kind. And, of course, we know that, generally speaking, there are mostly suicides when it comes to firearms fatalities. And there's something like a few hundred rifle deaths, and most of them are not AR-15 style deaths. You can look all this stuff up. I just wanted to bring up a quick article on it. But again, a lot of this is the government and the media building a narrative. Like I said, you have this narrative, and this same thing happens with the coup. So here from the BBC News, 9 die at Nottinghamshire care home. Oh, that's a repeat. Didn't mean to do that. Berkshire care home, 9 die. Why is it the same? Here's another one. Agberth care home. Skye care home. 9 deaths at Exmouth care home. Clifton nursing home resident die with virus. So that one was slightly different. Why is it 9? Why is the number the same? That is from March 11th. That's May 15th, whatever from the other year. But again, they just repeat. Here's January. That was last year in April. Yeah, same one. But they just repeat the same stories. And again, why? Because it's to get you fearful. It's to get the masses fearful, those who would obey, folks. So here, if we want to look at some real numbers, we can see the greatest pandemics that have appeared in the world. And we can look at the risk to folks from other pandemics, and we can see that what we're facing right now is just absurdly minuscule comparatively. And what we are doing to protect ourselves is even more ridiculous. But guys, it always has to be racial in this country because that's the only way that they can truly divide. That and the team sports things, you know, the Republicans versus the Democrat. But aside from that, racism and power are always the thing on the side of the left. And somehow the virus is racist in itself, depending on what state you're in. So here we have Latinos and blacks, but then whites are the majority of it. But then in California, it's mostly Latinos. Therefore, the virus is racist. And same with New York. A lot more Latinos and whatever else. And you might have heard this. You might have heard how it's affecting minorities and POCs, pieces of craps, more than other people. And that's true, whether their skin tone is, as of mine or darker. It is usually the people who are just not very functioning in society. They're not very good people. Well, some of them, granted, are struggling for real, and they are good people. But guys, I can just tell you from experience, from jails and hospitals, I can tell you that people that get sick a lot are not that don't take care of themselves physically are generally not always the best people. Now, again, this is really what we're seeing right now. This is, if it was white supremacy, any crime, and then media, it was white supremacy, right? And this is what we're seeing right now with the statistics. We're going to say, oh no, we're going to ignore what happens in, say, Baltimore or Chicago or any inner city area in the crime there because of who's dying. See here, we have these FBI numbers, and of course crossed out it says white supremacy as always. And yet we are supposed to prop up, saints like this gentleman, who was, of course, no saint. And speaking of which, we just had recently, we had this happen, right? We had this shooting, and it says the Boulder supermarket shooter likely fueled by Trump-era white supremacy, of course. And we have these little tweets. The shooter was taken into custody. In other words, it was almost certainly a white man again, and if he were black or brown, he would be dead, which is absolutely ridiculous, absurd. Go watch police shooting videos. There's nothing racial about any of it. It's always about crazy people doing crazy things, not obeying police orders, going to attack the police, and the police did what they believed they had to do to save their own lives or the lives of others. So it says, let's mourn the victims, but not glorify the killer with attention of having his name widely known. And that was just the next day after finding out that the man was Muslim. Finding out the name and finding out he was Muslim. So it says, if shooter white, then blame race, as if it's a program, right? NPC. White guy has bad day after murdering 8 people and being here to talk about it. Brown and black people would be dead for a whole lot less, like sleeping in their apartment. Here's my thing. If all this is true, why are they even in existence? If they are minorities in this nation, and this nation is fundamentally evil and just murders them randomly, why do they even exist? Why have we not genocided them yet? And of course, we know this guy with the shooting of the several Asian people was motivated not by race, but by sexual frustration. And then here we have, we shouldn't spread their names. We shouldn't glorify them. Yet puts this gentleman right up there. No problem. Of course, here is the reality. Muslim extremist. King Shoppers Boulder shooting. 5 facts you need to know. And I don't know what those 5 facts are, but we do know this gentleman was a Muslim. And here's another thing to think about. It says if you outlaw abortion, abortions will just happen illegally. This is one of their arguments they have. But if you outlaw guns, we will all be safe from gun crime. Well, I don't think so. Abortion is one of the leading killers in America. Now, I didn't fact check these numbers, but I'm more than certain they are probably correct. It is a meme, though, by the way, folks, so it could be wrong. And in 2016, the leading cause of death here, 500,000 abortions in the United States. And we get all the way down here to, let's say, influenza. We have 25,000. That's a pretty mild flu season, actually. And murder by gun, 5,000, of about 100 of which were by rifles, which they are now trying to ban. We allow abortion as a woman's right to choose to murder her own child, but guns, the right to protect yourself, is a big deal. And folks, there's something wrong with you if you do not believe that folks have the right to protect themselves. And you could say, well, we don't need guns. We can get rid of all the guns. Well, okay, then you just enter into the fray of the UK, where they just stab each other or beat each other over the top of the head. And then you have to outlaw those things. Folks, people will murder if they want to murder, and they will, just like the meme over here suggests, if you outlaw abortions, if they want to murder, they'll just murder. It doesn't matter if it's illegal or not, does it? Does not matter. So, in any case, to sum all this stuff up, what is this really about? Well, the legislation is proving. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it will get through, but the fact that they've tried it now means that it will be pushed through again at some point. They will try it at another point. And guys, unfortunately, that is just the the reality of it. That sometimes this is a waiting game. I'll put it that way. Sometimes it's a matter of wins in the moment, but losses in the end, unfortunately. And I don't think this will pass right now because, as I've said before, this isn't the end. Too many people have been too upset and everything over the election, and they're concerned about our future. I'm concerned about our future too, but it will be a while before the future is just totally insane. Now, it seems insane now because everything's magnified by the 24-hour news cycle. But what you really have to understand is that we have the 24-hour news cycle in the interwebs, and we have voices, and we can fight back. And by exposing these things and by sharing these things with folks and saying, well, look, these are the same stories repeated over and over and over again. Again, I talked about this with the H.R. 1 bill. They do the same with the coronas. They always make it racial. Why are the narratives always the same? Because it's emotionally appealing to folks. And the idea of having a world without guns where there's no death and no violence, which, by the way, has nothing to do with guns, that existed long before guns were ever invented. But in any case, the idea of that is so emotionally appealing to folks, and we have such a feminized society that that's exactly what happens is over time, as the men become weaker and weaker and lead less and less, basically we get all these narratives of we have to protect everyone, we can't allow their feelings to be hurt, mommy come save me, and we get this kind of legislation. But guys, that is all I have for this today. This, sorry guys, is going to be out a little bit late just because I didn't get to recording. So it's not going to be a release at 3 p.m., but hey, whatever. You shall live. It is my life, and hopefully you're not revolving your life around mine. With all that said, folks, this has been All Minus One Quick Shots, and I wish you all well.